I had to kind of crush my daughter's soul, 4-year-old girl, and and I didn't have any way around it. You're supposed to be, especially like the man of the house, you're supposed to protect your family, and I was in a situation where I had to crush my little girl's heart. Just wrecked me out, just broke down, and then my life just kind of plummeted into chaos.
Oh, what a lad. Well, if you grew up in Hawke's Bay in the mid-2000s, it's highly likely that today's guest is your all-time favourite player. He had a whopping 114 caps for his beloved Hawke's Bay Magpies, while often being one of their best on park with his show and go and scramble defence. He also had a big impact at the Hurricanes in his 27 games in just 2 years before moves to the Force in Perth, Valladolid in Spain, and RC Cuban in Russia, to finish with a CV of an absolute battler. But the main reason he's on the podcast is he's an absolute lad, one of the funniest players I played with. It is the great Chris Eaton. Welcome, mate.
Thanks for having me, mate. Yeah, hell of an intro.
Mate, the last couple of days since I've said that you're coming on this podcast, I've had people from all around the world sharing stories of their favourite times with Chris Eaton, and man, there are some yarns to be shared.
Yeah, I can only imagine the types of people that have been writing in wanting a bit of get back at me.
Have a guess. Give me some names.
Ash Dixon's got to be in there.
Correct.
Mike Bowman will be in there.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Oh yeah. Well, there's so many people. Yeah, like I said, from all around the world, have a good story on you. So you've left an impact, but because there's so many stories at the back end of this, I'm keen to start right at the start for you. Like, growing up in Flaxmere, for people who don't know Flaxmere, give us a rundown of Flaxmere first before we go into what your upbringing was like.
Flaxmere is an area, I suppose you'd call it a low decile area. It's predominantly Māori Pacific Islander, and some call it the hood. But I grew up there. I'm proud to come from there, and there's a few other good boys that have come out of there as well, and plenty of life lessons come out of those streets too.
Yeah, and what was your upbringing like? Like, what did you sort of do as a young kid?
Oh, bro, like I feel like I had a good upbringing. Like I have good parents, good hardworking parents, like middle class parents, really supportive of my rugby and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
when you grow up in an area like that, there's a lot of things that you're kind of normal that you find out when you're a bit older that are not quite so normal. A lot of fights, a lot of violence, a lot of standovers. You go out on your skateboard, you might not come home with your skateboard. So there's plenty of that sort of stuff. So a lot of positives, a lot of good friends that I'm still friends with now that I grew up with, but a lot of things that you've got to kind of figure out along the way that might not be conducive to you being a good member of society as you get older.
What age is this? What age are you into that sort of, not trouble, but I guess it is kind of.
Yeah, I was born and raised there, and I lived there till I was 20. So um, I was like I always had my eyes on being a rugby player. That was what I wanted to do, but off the field, there's a lot of the times I couldn't get out of my own way. I was always in trouble. Like from kind of primary school, there was a lot of the time the boys would play league on the field.
Yeah.
Fights would happen, and just going through the years, it was always kind of a violent undertone around where we grew up, and it was just kind of how things were solved, I suppose. And the toughest kid on the block is the one who gets everyone respects him a little bit, and And not to say that was me, that's for sure, but
You would have been close, eh?
um,
And what were you like at school? Like, were you a good sort of learner, or was I could imagine you sort of being the guy skipping school, smoking out the back of the classroom.
yeah, no, very average at school. Uh, I went back 2 years seventh form,
Yeah.
and was still doing fifth form work, so not not a great learner. But I had my I'm not I realized as I got older I'm not dumb. I'm just if it doesn't interest me, I didn't apply myself, and what I wanted to be was a rugby player, and that was where I had my focus. Everything else was kind of secondary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What age did you set your sights on rugby?
I remember when I was probably 16 when I started to kind of just morph into doing something about it, I suppose. And I didn't make a lot of rep teams and stuff up until that point, but I just loved it. And so I just decided one day that I'm gonna get fit, and I just got up every day and I just hit the streets and I just started running. And that was kind of from that day on. That was me. I was always into it. I was always into training. I was always into keeping fit and trying to get on top of my game. So yeah, I think around that age was when I started to take things a bit more serious in terms of not just playing and training when you have to train, but doing a few more extras and stuff like that.
Yeah, were you always a nine?
Yeah, yeah, I was always a nine. When I was a young fella, I was pretty small. So, when you're in the junior grades, if you're a small dude, they just throw you at halfback, and you got to survive somehow. So, yeah, that was me.
Were you tough? Like, were you always a tough player? Like, obviously you were scrapping pretty young, but were you tough on the field?
Um, yeah, I think so. I think that's kind of how I kind of got by,
Yeah.
and like at our team through the junior grades, that was like all of our boys were like that. Like you play Flaxmere, it's not an enjoyable game for you. Like we might not win on the scoreboard, but it's you guys are not going to have that good of a time. So you kind of everyone gets in together and we're going in one direction, but there's not. Sometimes we didn't win them all, but yeah, we had a good time doing it.
Yeah, and you mentioned putting your focus into rugby. Did that sort of keep you out of the trouble and the gangs, or was it a bit of a balance of both from that sort of 16-year-old age?
No, mate, it didn't keep me out of trouble at all. Like coming through the age grades and stuff, and talking to I suppose that kind of era, I was always drummed into me like you had to be hard or you had to be mongrel or whatever, and so that was fine by me. But I didn't know how to um, flick that switch from rugby to everyday life.
Yeah.
So if we're out drinking and stuff like that and whatever, all that stuff kind of just spilled over, and
Mm.
yeah, it's easy to get into trouble when that's kind of your social, um, what would you call it? Social currency, I suppose.
Yeah.
Like all the other boys, we're into something. You're either in or you're out, and there's not much of a choice. Everyone's in.
Yeah. And was that your relationship with alcohol from a young age? Did you get into that pretty early?
Yeah, like I was, my boss later down the track, he said to me, he was trying to help me out of a spot of bother I'd got into, and he said it's clear that you don't have a drinking problem, but you got a problem drinking. And I didn't drink. I wasn't a big drinker. I didn't drink all the time because I did have that focus on rugby,
Yeah.
and I know where I wanted to go, but when I did drink, there's always a problem. And to be fair, there was a problem when I was sober driving most of the time too, so it wasn't always the alcohol.
Were you always like, because obviously on the field you a lot of people said you're one of the angriest players they played with or against. Was that always your sort of nature from as young as you can remember?
Yeah, yeah, and I think it just comes down to kind of how we were brought up and in the environment we grew up in.
Yeah,
Um, the advice our old man gave to us, and just the guys, like we were all in the same similar situation from the same area, and like going out on the weekend when we were older, if someone got locked up, it's not a surprise.
yeah.
You have an overnighter with the boys in blue, and no one really asks any questions. You go home, mum's stressing a little bit, but it was pretty normal.
Was that you often? Did you spend many
Yes,
nights
yes.
in?
I got a handful of criminal convictions. I'm not all that proud of, but it is what they are.
Yeah. So what was your pathway into the Hawke's Bay side? Because obviously 2005 was obviously still old school NPC back then. And what was your
Yeah.
pathway into that side?
So yeah, 2005, I kind of missed out on the initial squad,
Oh yeah.
and I got called in halfway through the season, and I played a handful of games. And guys, like, I was getting a bit of a reputation around town that maybe I wasn't worth the trouble, and I was a bit of a headache to people. I was, like I was saying, I thought I was a decent player. There was still a few guys ahead of me at that point, but some coaches may have seen that I wasn't worth the drama that I was creating. So,
Yeah. What age are
uh,
you at this point?
I think 19 or 20
Oh
when
yeah,
I
straight out of
first
school. Yeah.
played, and then so the following year when Hawke's Bay went to First Division, I've missed out altogether, and I've had some pretty major off-field drama. Um, I'll I'll lead you into this yarn because it kind of works into how I originally got my first shot. So I was having a lot of off-field drama. So Hawke's Bay back then we used to train from November all the way through. So we basically would get a month off season and would train all year round.
Oh, true.
Yeah, it was it was pretty hectic. So, and I'd done that for quite a few years before I'd cracked it, and I'd got myself into some fairly big trouble with the law. I'd been arrested and I was facing some pretty serious consequences, and so I'd kind of removed myself out of the wider training group squad, and I was just trying to deal with this court case and get that behind me so I could get back on the wagon. And this is 2007 at this point. So I remember standing in the courthouse and I was looking at going for a holiday. And long story short, I paid a lot of money for a pretty good lawyer, yada yada, and I ended up with community work, which like I was wiping my brow. I went back out into the holding cell out the back, and the lady cop went to close the door, and then she opens the door and she goes, you might as well go buy a lotto ticket. And I looked at her and I'm like, yeah, I could think I might just do that. And she just slams the door on me. So, like I got this massive weight off my shoulders, and I'm like, man, I'm into it now. I can go. I'm gonna give rugby a nudge, and so I go back to the trainer, and I said, man, I want to come back. I've got this stuff off my back. I want to give it a nudge. And he goes, nah, you can't come back. And he said, all these guys have been training since November and you've been kind of nowhere to be seen.
Mm.
Yeah, and I said to him, I said, I'll come back and I'll fucking smoke all these dudes. So I don't care how long they've been training for. he's like, uh, he's kind of said I couldn't come. So I went back to my club coach. I just wasn't willing to take no for an answer.
Yeah.
And I went back to my club coach and I said, ring the rugby union, tell them I'm coming back to training. And he pulled some strings. There was another guy in the rugby union that kind of went into bat for me as well. And so they called me in for a meeting, and they just said, what do you want? And I just said, man, I want to be a Magpie. I've worked. I know I've lived this for ever since I was a kid. This team has been a dream of mine. So they let me back in the wider training squad, and I just trained my ass off. And then when contract time came around, they kept, or obviously they had Danny Lee, so he was their kind of marquee signing. They signed him as the captain.
Yeah.
And then they had another older guy there. They were obviously looking to move him on and bring a young guy in, and it just happened to be me that year. So that was kind of what kicked me off. And then I was in the team from there all the way through 114 games later.
Oh, crazy. And was that first contract written in that you weren't allowed to touch alcohol?
No, it actually wasn't.
Oh.
So, which it probably should have been. But that would have saved me a lot of drama, because I would have thought, you would think after all of that I would have put that stuff behind me, but I didn't.
Oh, so you still had some incidences that year.
Yeah, so leading into that year, I had, long story short, they had kind of told me, you're on your last warning. If you mess up, you're out the door, basically. So I was like, okay. And then I still had a lot of kind of drama and baggage that was in my personal life. I was in a pretty toxic kind of relationship that was ending. Long story short, I had an issue with a guy. I went out with one of my mates. I was sober, and I kind of ran into the dude, and we went at it. He came off second best, and the cops come looking for me. So I knew this was my last chance. So instead of owning up to it, I went to another one of my mates, and I said to him, bro, I'll give you $500 if you admit to taking this charge for me. Which, being a good mate he was, he's like, yeah, no drama.
Did he tell
you? $500. And little did I know that that's a highly illegal thing to do. And so he tries to take the charge for me. At that stage, I'm about an 85 kilo white boy. He's 110 kilo Samoan. So it's a little bit hard to kind of switch places with our story of what went down. But we tried to corroborate this story. And in the end, someone had dobbed me in, and I got in trouble for it. And I went to my lawyer, and he said, well, we were facing a pretty easy charge. I would have got you a fine for. Now you're going to face maybe 15 months.
In jail?
And yeah.
Oh, shit.
And my body just breaks into a sweat.
Yeah.
And I didn't realise what I'd even done was a crime at the time.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening was I was sitting in my lawyer's office, and he, this guy is one of the top lawyers around. I made sure I was fronting out a good bit of cash to try and get me off. And he rang the head guy at the police, and he goes, hey, how you going, mate? And he's like, you got the bait for this weekend? They're talking about a fishing trip. And he goes, "Oh, well, I got you there. Um, I got I got this guy Chris Eaton sitting in my office. So I'm gonna need you to drop X charge." So they were charging me with perverting the course of justice, and he managed to drop that down to common assault, which was just for the initial blowout that we'd
Yeah.
had. So I managed to kind of clear that up, and then I just had to deal with the issue of the rugby union then. So now they know, because I told them, no, I had nothing to do with it. And now it's all come out that I had everything to do with it.
Yeah.
So I go into a meeting with them, and I'm basically just cap in hand, like, I fucked up. Um, it was, I just kind of pleaded with them to give me a shot, and they did. The long and short of it, they did, but your original point, they gave me a drinking ban, which
For the
was
next
fair enough.
114 caps, was it?
Yeah, I'll take that drinking ban and that deal any day of the week. But it just so happened that year that it was kind of a resurgence in Hawke's Bay rugby, and we had, gone through to the semis. We had massive crowds, and I'm not allowed to drink. I got a sober drive for Jason Schumacher every weekend.
Oh, and a few other yarns that came up. Obviously, rooming with Danny. Is it Danny Lee?
Yeah. So um, that was that same year. So I was kind of the newbie in the team. Danny was our captain, and he's like a guy that um, he kind of demands a lot of respect.
Yeah.
He'd been around, and quite a straight arrow type of dude. And I'm rooming with him like this young blowout, and he has a reasonably early night. I go out, have a couple. No, mustn't have been that year, or maybe I went out sober. I can't remember.
You're drinking on your drinking ban.
I was on a drinking ban, so I must have been sober, but I went out anyway. It was either that year, or might have been the following. And I come home, and he's crashed out. I'm in bed, and our beds are kind of this way, but on opposite sides um, of the room,
Yeah.
and the toilet is at the far end. And I'm lying there. I'm like, man, I'm busting to go to the toilet, and I didn't want to wake him up, so I didn't want to flick the light on or anything. So I just started feeling my way like around the room, and I went up one side, and then I went past the toilet, and then I started coming back down his side, and then he's like lying in bed, and then I just start patting his body down, and I just hear him, hey, and I'm like, oh, sorry, bro, I'm trying to find the toilet. Which, if you do that to one of your mates, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But when there's a dynamic of like the captain and the 20-year-old in there, it makes you feel a little bit different.
Did you laugh about it afterwards, or was it just ignored it ever since?
Yeah, kind of one of those unspoken things.
Oh, that's so good. The other person I'm keen to hear a bit more about is Carl Lowe. What was your relationship like with Carl Lowe?
If I'm picking a team, I'd pick Carl Lowe for that team. If you're playing with someone, he'll be first on the list
Yeah.
for any team that I'm playing for. But a very simple human too. Like he is, he is something else. He's got a few theories that that are a bit out the gate.
Oh, I used to enjoy your banter between you two. It used to be so good.
Yeah, I love Blowier. He's an absolute warrior, but he's he's good to get a few laughs out of as well at his expense.
Yeah. But obviously, your time at Hawke's Bay, 114 caps, super successful time, over two stints. Took you a while to get a crack with the Canes. probably due to some of those off-field incidents. But when you finally got the call, I think it was 6 years later, how'd you find out that you were going to play Super Rugby?
Yeah, so like kind of in my mind, I'd never really thought you could call yourself a rugby player until you'd played Super Rugby.
Yeah.
Like I thought, that's when you're starting to play with some of the best guys in the world, and to really kind of see how good you are or how you shape up, and I'd had 2 years of those painful phone calls of like, oh, you've made the wider training group, mate. Like, oh, awesome. So the first year, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
The second year, when you're holding tackle shields for everyone, it gets a bit old. And
Imagine being moved. He did it 5 years.
He's the most scared Hurricanes B player of all time.
140 games for the Hunters, I think he played.
But so I'm sitting upstairs at my old house, and I knew it's like back then when they used to have the draft before they had franchise contracting and stuff. And our backs coach was Alama Uramir, and which I had a pretty good relationship with. And I'm sitting up there. I know the phone call's coming, so I'm just hanging around trying to keep my mind off it. And my phone rings. I see it's Alama. I pick it up. We have a bit of a yarn. He tells me, congratulations, you're in the squad this year. And well, I was just like, I was so pumped. And, I was trying to keep my cool. Thanks a lot, Alama. Chuck my phone on the bed, bro, and I just jump in the air, and I'm like yelling around the house. There's no one home. I'm yelling the house down. And then I look down, and I hadn't hung the phone up. So Lama's on the other end, just hearing me scream like a girl. After I just tried to like play it cool that I'm in the squad. And I just didn't even talk to him. I just hung up and chucked it away.
Oh, that's so good. Did he even mention it? Did you guys ever talk about it?
He didn't mention it to me, but he mentioned it. He didn't say me by name, but I remember him telling the story to someone.
True.
Like, just kind of, he thought it was quite a good thing, like that someone was that excited to be involved, So.
Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah.
And then what was it like going in as a full-time professional? Like you said, it had always been your sort of goal, and once you finally made it?
Yeah, it was like I'd been around the guys and that for 2 years already, because I'd been wider training group and that, but it was kind of a lot of pressure, like, man, I'm actually going to play now. And, and we're in a team that's got like 50 Test All Blacks.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to try and step up here, which is a little bit daunting.
Yeah. Were you confident in your own ability? You obviously say it was daunting, but did you always feel like you were good enough to be there?
Nah, I don't think so, Like, going from, because I was never a player that was like, New Zealand 16s or New Zealand schools or whatever, I never followed that pathway, so I was never kind of introduced to those guys. I was more like,
you're in
club
jail.
player. Yeah, I'm a battler of the highest order. And then they just throw you into a mix with like, and I'm like Conrad, Ma'a, Hori, and all those boys, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I really belong here.
Yeah.
And but you just gotta, bite down and, give it what you got.
Yeah, and you obviously did that. What about your first game for the Hurricanes? What was that like?
I think we played the Highlanders. Was my first game, and I was playing against Jimmy.
Two of the angriest nights ever.
Which, like, man, he's a legend, and I had a lot of respect for him, because I feel like, those players that kind of idle in the orange zone, they're right on the verge of red.
Yeah.
I could understand those players, but he could do it. he could be on the verge of the red, but still clean up.
Yeah.
It didn't make him lose his head.
Mm.
So yeah, it was always interesting playing against him, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But yeah, first game my first year in the Canes, we had a star-studded team, and we couldn't win a game to save our lives. We were pretty rough. We had a lot of off-field dramas. That was the first year Mark Hammett had come in to coach the team, and he had kind of ideas of changing the Hurricanes culture, and there was a lot of stuff going on between the coaching staff and the senior members and stuff like that, and it kind of just flowed down into our performances on the field. So in terms of performance that year, like we were pretty rough. We didn't have a good year.
You got a lot of game time though from memory. Obviously 27 caps over those 2 years. You're playing most games.
Yes, I played every game bar one.
Shit.
And yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it, but it's like I was a full-time rugby player and I was doing everything I dreamed of doing.
Mm.
But when you're not winning games, it's still hard. It's still it's stressful. You wanna do your best for the team. You want the team to do better. The environment's not great, and so on that aspect, it was a bit of a hard year.
Yeah.
But the following year, there was a big dynamic shift, and a lot of the younger guys who had been signed, like Reggie, Brad Shields, TJ, all those guys, Bodie,
Yeah.
all started to come through, and it kind of Colsey were all the ones that were starting to take kind of leadership roles when they didn't have that previously with the other senior boys there.
Mm.
So we didn't have as good a team on paper, but results-wise and kind of off the field-wise, it was a much better year.
Yeah. What was your first thoughts of TJ when he came in?
On a personal note, like, good, awesome trainer, like ultimate professional. You know what he's like. He eats all the right stuff. He trains hard. But he was another halfback, so I had a little bit of animosity against him too.
Did you know you're in trouble when he came in? Did you think, shit, this guy's got...
No, I actually
No.
didn't.
No.
So, but there's actually quite a good story. I don't know if someone's asked you about that story, but
No.
that's a kind of a story in itself. So, the halfbacks, then me, Chris Smiley, and TJ, and TJ's only just come out of school,
Yeah.
and they obviously seen him as kind of the future of the franchise, which has turned out to be a pretty safe bet. Turned out.
They were right on the money.
Yeah. I was trying to argue differently at the time. But so we play the Chiefs in Taupo and for our last pre-season game, and we're going to fly out to Africa the next day. And me and Smiley were named for the Chiefs game, and we were named to go to Africa too for the first game.
Yeah.
So TJ's only a young fella. He didn't like, obviously a really good player, but back then his passing game was a bit dusty, to say it politely. And so I wasn't stressing too much about this new young fella. And then anyway, that Chiefs game, the last preseason game, Smiley blows his shoulder.
Oh, classic.
And they bring TJ in. We go to Africa. I start against the Stormers, and I thought I played pretty well. We'd kind of just gone down to them, who they were kind of did to smoke us. And so I got the start against the Lions the following game, and I've just had an absolute mare. And one of those games where you just make one mistake and it just rolls on through to a blowout, and you can't pick yourself out of the hole. One of those games. And Alama comes up to me and he goes, "Mate, we're gonna give TJ a crack this week against the Western Force on the way home."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Mate, I can't argue with that. I know I've had a blowout." So that's what you got to do. Now I'm thinking he'll get a crack, he'll throw a few dusty passes out, and I'll be back in the starting mix the following week. So I take my spot on the bench. TJ rocks out, scores 3 tries, and I'm just sitting there like, got my head down. Oh, okay, this can't be happening. And I didn't get another look in for the rest of the year.
And was that the end of your career as a Hurricane, basically?
Yeah, well, I actually got another run. I started the games towards the tail end of the season because in the test break, they had test break back then.
Yeah.
We played we played the Reds over in the Sunshine Coast, and TJ broke his leg.
Oh, that's
So
right.
yeah, he gave me another shot. Thank him for that.
But then the following year, you were moved on, or did you decide to leave, or what was the exit
Yeah, so
there?
they had yeah, they TJ had an absolute blinder, and like I said, they had dubbed him as kind of the future with obviously Bodie there too.
Yeah.
It was going to be like a combination that was going to be there for good, and they just said they weren't going to re-sign me, and they would see how things go in the NPC, and yeah, they'll call me, I don't call them, kind of thing.
So is that why you decided to move to the Force?
Yeah, so the Hawke's Bay season that year was pretty rough. We didn't win a lot of games and stuff, and it was struggling to perform. I had um, forward pack that was kind of going backwards a little bit, and none of my fault, obviously. It's all those guys in front of me.
Always is.
Yes. So yeah, I missed out on the Super season, and then a little bit later, my agent called me and said the Force are looking for a nine. It's between me and another guy from the Brumbies, and I was just waiting to hear from them, and they had decided to pick me up. I was over there on injury cover.
Oh, mid-season. Oh, was it? Oh,
Yeah,
true.
and so I was cover for Brett Sheehan.
How'd you find it? And did you just shoot over there by yourself? Left your family at home?
Yep. So my plan was because my wife at the time had an English passport.
Oh, yeah.
So I was going to play the season out at the Force, and then um, obviously link back up with the family, and we're going to try and I was looking at getting into England,
Oh, yeah.
but yeah, the Force setup was awesome, brand new gym. I really enjoyed the kind of the Australian style banter.
Yeah.
They come in quite hot, which I quite like. They had a few good Kiwi boys there. Sam Christie was there.
Oh, yeah.
Albie Matheson was there. So it was quite a smooth kind of transition when I got there. The coaches it was a good coaching team, and yeah.
What was it like rooming with Albie Mathewson?
Oh, mate. He's the worst roommate ever. So I don't. There wasn't where I roomed with Albie. So where I roomed with Albie was back in Hawke's Bay
Oh,
post
true. Yeah.
post that season. So me and him were the 2 9. So every week we got teamed up together, and the coaches came to me, and they because they kind of know I've got a reasonably short wick. They said, "How we've signed Albie Matheson." I knew Albie from around the way, but we weren't kind of mates or anything at that point.
Yeah.
And how are you going to handle this? And but that stuff never bothered me. And I just told them, mate, if you guys pick the best guy who's playing the best rugby, then that's fine by me, and I'll do my best to make the team. If not, I'll do my best to to play my part. If it's off the bench, whatever it is. So that stuff never bothered me. I was always of the mindset that whatever you got, you needed to earn anyway. Doesn't matter who they signed,
Yeah.
and if you're good enough, you're good enough. If you're not, then you'll come off the bench.
Yeah.
So we end up rooming every week. At the start we got along all right, and then he's devised this game to try and give me a fright all the time, which is pretty childish on his behalf. But this game, man, it started getting out of control and getting more and more elaborate. And like, I come back to the room one time and I've forgot my key, so I'm banging on the door, trying to get him to open the door. And I think, oh, he mustn't be here. So I got to shoot down to reception, and I said, oh, I've lost my key. You guys mind hooking me up with another one? So they give me another one. I go back up, go into the room, and I'm parked up on the bed for a good couple of minutes. And I'm just watching TV, and I just spy out of the corner of my eye, and he's perched himself up like a gargoyle on the top of the cupboards in between the ceiling and the cupboard. He's like a creep, just been watching me for 5 minutes. And just as I spy him, he's like trying to give me a fright. I'm like, he heard me banging on the door. He stayed up there for God knows how long, knowing I'd go back to reception. And then just so he could kind of creep on me when I didn't know anyone was in the bedroom.
Oh, commitment to
Yes,
the game.
he's fully committed.
You're lucky you just went and watched TV. You could have been up to all sorts.
Mate, that ran through my head a lot.
Oh, so good. So we'll go back to your force. Just before you, did you even get to debut for the force? Or was that, because obviously your life turns upside down with the tragic car accident from your wife. Was that
Yeah.
as you were about to play your first game for the force?
Yeah, so I played a couple of lead-in games for their their development team, and then they'd named me to play against the Waratahs in Sydney.
Yeah.
So we fly out to Sydney the day before, and all the normal stuff you do on an away trip, hotels and stuff, and then I'm going to go crash. So I crash out, and then early in the morning, the Foley, our coach, and the doctor just I can't remember if they knocked or if they'd got a key and let themselves into our room, and they just walk in, and he just goes, get up, and the doctor grabbed my phone and my charger, and he's like, come with us, and I'm like, the fuck is going on? And I go into the elevator. I'm standing there, I'm still half asleep, and like it's running through my mind what's going on. I thought the first thing I thought is I must have failed a drug test because the doctor's here, and I don't know why I don't take drugs, and I hadn't been drug tested. So I don't know why that was running through my mind, but still asleep. And mate, he goes, come in here into the team room, and I just sit in the seat, like kind of how we're speaking now. And he said, mate, your wife was driving late last night, and she'd got into an accident, and she's passed away. And fuck, it just wrecked me out. I just broke down, and yeah, I just couldn't function. I didn't really know what to do next. And they chucked me on a plane. They took me from the hotel straight to the airport, and I flew back, and I was just my phone was running hot of trying to get hold of people I needed to get hold of, and had my daughter back in the Coromandel at the time. So what was happening was it was Easter weekend. My daughter was in the Coromandel with her grandparents, and my wife was driving to meet her, and she'd just come around the corner, and I think she must have just fallen asleep, or she'd veered too wide and got hit by another car. And yeah, and I just I got hold of them on the phone, and because I had my little girl was 4 years old, and I didn't want anyone to tell her. I know I had to be there to tell her what had happened. I didn't want anyone else to have to tell her. And sorry, bro.
No.
And bro, this is the part that kind of it always kind of gets to me, because I had to kind of crush my daughter's soul, 4-year-old girl, and and I didn't have any way around it. You're supposed to be, especially like the man of the house, you're supposed to protect your family. And I was in a situation where I had to crush my little girl's heart.
Yeah.
And so I get back to the airport, and I just take her into a back room and told her what had happened, and then it's just from then, bro, my life just kind of plummeted into chaos, for quite a while.
Could imagine. Man, the thought of telling your 4-year-old daughter that news, honestly, toughest conversation ever.
Yeah, and like that's the whole situation is like hands down the worst thing that's ever happened to me. But that kind of piece is something that's still really, really hard to deal with.
Yeah.
Even this far down the track, it's still pretty. I don't think it will ever leave my mind,
Yeah. And how do you start to move on from it? Like, obviously you're battling for a long time, trying to work out why it's happened, how life's going to be going forward. How do you get through all that?
So the support network around, especially the kind of rugby infrastructure, were really good. The Rugby Players Association had guys, Gibbo, and that had come to the Coromandel where I was to meet with me. They organised counsellors and stuff like that, which I wasn't, that's not really me, but I just wanted to try and do what I could for my girl at the time. And the force had said to me they said that the offer was there if I wanted to come back. I still had my spot, but I just couldn't physically make it work, and I wasn't in any sort of mental shape to figure it out either. But they said, oh, we'll pay you out your contract. So they paid me out my contract, and it just gave me a couple of months breathing room where I didn't have a lot of responsibilities, and I could just kind of gather myself and just get from day to day and just function as a dad. And really the only thing that got me through that period was my daughter. And if she, like, it was just like my life was just grey, and she was just kind of this shining beacon, because I knew I had a responsibility to her. And that was kind of what got me through that initial period. I went and spoke to Danny. So Danny Lee had gone from my captain when I was a young fella. He'd gone overseas, and then he'd come back, and he was the coach of the Magpies. So I had a pretty good relationship with him, and I went in and saw him, and he said, mate, I'll keep your spot for you if you want it, because I told him I was probably going to retire. And he said, I'll keep your spot for you, but I can only kind of keep it for so long. So I just had that kind of breathing room to figure out what I wanted to do. And just getting over that initial hump, so kind of on the side of things, I do a little bit of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, grappling, and I decided there was a local comp coming up, and I wasn't up to much, so I decided I was going to enter into that. So I entered that, and I did all right, and it kind of just ignited this competitive spark again.
Yeah.
And it just made me realize that, when you get the butterflies in your stomach when you're going to compete at something, and the kind of adrenaline dump and the afterwards, how good you feel, it kind of reignited that in me, and it made me feel like, man, I need to play rugby because I need to have this, or else I'm going to just explode. So that was kind of how I just worked back into building back into rugby. I went in and re-signed with Hawke's Bay, and I played probably some of the best rugby of my life then, because I didn't give a fuck about rugby.
Yeah.
I was there to for 80 minutes to have fun with my mates, try and smoke someone, and run with the ball, and that's just what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so that's what I decided to do, and I was playing really good rugby, and I just was loving it. And then when the whistle would go, I would walk off, and I'd be back into just trying to kind of piece my life together again. So it was just kind of a good reprieve from that daily grind of like trying to get out of my head, and you know
Yeah. Good distraction from the
yeah,
reality of life.
yeah, yeah.
Man.
And I'm sure I'm not the only one that rugby's done that for. There's it's a good thing about our sport. It's when you're out there, you're thinking about what you got to do out there. You're not thinking about the missus nagging you, or you're
Yeah.
not thinking about trying to put the kids to bed. You got a job to do for 80 minutes. You get that done, then you can go back to your life.
Yeah. 100%. Oh, the beauty of sport. But, mate, geez, that is such a tough moment in your life that you've obviously bounced back really well from, and you've met your new wife. How long later was that?
Um, so probably would have been about a year or
Yeah.
so. I met her, maybe just under, which it doesn't sound like a lot of time after you're like I thought this from the outside in, like when people kind of see my situation, oh, he's with someone else already. But a year, when I was in that kind of headspace, and sitting at home alone, and that it feels like an eternity.
Yeah.
And so we met, yeah, probably a year, like just under a year or so after that. And but I was really cautious about introducing a new woman into my daughter's life.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that if I was going to introduce her to a woman, then it was going to be someone that was going to be um, around for a while.
Mm.
And I'd like to say that it was, smooth sailing, but it wasn't, because I was a mess. I wasn't. I probably wasn't in a spot to be in any form of relationship, but I knew that who is my wife now, was a good woman, and I wasn't willing to let her go, but I wasn't in a good position to be in a good relationship as well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And then I don't know how long later it was, but you obviously have your son, Rome, and you married and living happily ever after. You got through it all.
yeah. So me and my wife have been together just not long, 5 years now, and we've got a son. He's 4, and yeah, she's awesome. My wife. She's been a really good role model for my daughter. She's a good mother figure, and emotional support for her, and yeah, I couldn't ask for much better from her.
Yeah. So then, as a family, you guys all moved to Spain on one of your your first journeys overseas to clip on the CV?
Yeah, so I was kind of happy. I'd got a job with Hawke's Bay Rugby in the later years of my career with them as a doing the strength and conditioning for the academy.
Oh, true.
Yeah, which was kind of I was playing and I was doing that on the side too. So that was kind of the field I wanted to move into. So I was pretty happy. And then I was pretty old in terms of being a rugby player, and my wife had always wanted to travel, but she never kind of got the chance. And I was pretty happy, but she convinced me to go, and I said, "Oh well, I'll just try and I'll see what's out there, and I'll just pick up a contract, and we'll just go traveling off the back of that." So Spain was what come calling, and we ended up there, and man, uh, it was a massive shift. It was awesome. I loved my time in Spain, and if I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah.
Met some really good people, um, and just had a really good time. Like the rugby there was competitive enough to, to fulfill your kind of your competitive spark, but we didn't train heaps. So we had heaps of downtime, and the place we were in was awesome. Plenty of English speakers, plenty of expats and stuff like that. So awesome time there.
Such a cool way to travel, eh? Like with a family, especially when you're training those sort of hours that you would have been, and opportunities to travel the world as a group of four of you, family of four of you. Pretty special memories.
Yeah, well, at that stage we didn't have my young fella, so
Oh, true. It was the three of
just
you.
me, my girl, and my wife. So it was yeah, even easier without a without a tornado.
And how many years did you do there in Spain?
I did 2 seasons there,
Yeah.
and then shot the gap and headed for the the big smoke of Russia.
How did that decision come about? Like, why Russia?
Oh, you can thank Jake Ellison for that. He hooked that up. Fucking what a what a decision that was.
What was he there? No.
Nah, he kind of messaged me. Oh, I think he'd put something out there. Oh, I know a guy who's looking for a halfback or something, and I just jumped on it. I said, "Yeah, Jake hooked me up." So he puts me in touch with this guy who will quite easily talk for 3 hours on a Zoom call, and convinces me to come to Russia.
What was the deciding fact? Was it just more money, or like what got you away from the Spanish lifestyle?
Yeah, there was decent money there in Russia,
Yeah.
but the trouble was just trying to get it off them. So,
What weren't getting paid.
well, I was getting paid. I wasn't even on a work visa. I was getting paid in a brown paper bag, and I was having to fly to Turkey once a month to renew my visa. But I decided to leave Spain because um, I had the offer there. The offer was good money, and the Spanish team had said, "Oh, we're not re-signing people till the end of the season." And I said to them, "Well, mate, I'm gonna bounce if you don't re-sign me. I've got another dude waiting to hear what I'm gonna do."
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh, we're not signing people till the end of the season." And I'm like, "Okay." So I told them I'm out of there, and then come the end of the season, which was only like 2 weeks later, they said, "Oh, we'd love for you to re-sign you." I said, "Mate, I'm out of here. I told you I was leaving."
Was
Really cut their nose off to spite their face.
was the family excited to go to Russia, or?
Well, my part of the reason why I was wanted to get out too was because my wife was working teaching English there,
Oh yeah.
um, in like 2 hours a day. It was a real struggle for her to do 2 hours a day, and then so she just wanted to change, and yeah, we just thought it would be a good opportunity. The Russian team had like 6 or 7 Kiwi boys there.
Oh yeah.
Um, so yeah, we just thought it would be a good change, another adventure, give it a nudge.
But Russia sounded like it had its challenges as well. Sounded like you got evicted out of your flat and had a few various other issues.
Yes. So man, I like fly into Russia, and I must have been there. Walked into a meeting with the coach. Another 3 hours of my life I'll never get back. And I get hooked up with a place, and it's a nice place. And then the boys, like the expat boys, are like, oh, we're gonna have a meeting in our flat. And then I've been there like a couple of days, and when they call this meeting, so I rock in, and I'm kind of just meeting the boys, and then they have this meeting about no one's getting paid, and should we threaten to leave, and what are we gonna do?
Day
I'm
one.
like, I'm like, yeah, sweet, nice to meet you, boys. And bro, it was so obviously prior to this, I had to be out of my house in Spain, so I'd moved to an Airbnb in Madrid, and I was there, and I couldn't. I was waiting on my visa to get into Russia. So I don't know if you've ever been to a non-English speaking country and tried to sort a visa to another non-English speaking country, but it's kind of an ordeal. And so I finally get that sorted, and the Russian team's telling me that don't worry about it, we'll pay, we'll reimburse you for all your costs and stuff, and these costs are starting to rack up. And then when I get to Russia, I'm like, you guys owe me X amount of dollars, and everyone's just kind of like, maybe talk to that guy.
Did you get it?
In the end, I got it, but it was a kind of a shit show of Russia was just a shit show. It was like I actually enjoyed the place. I was in a real nice area. Um, the team was struggling, but it is what it is. When I was 36 or whatever, I just have a hit out with the boys and go and chill. I was just kind of cruising in terms of rugby, and but so it kind of started crumbling, and then all the boys decided to leave, and me and one other of the boys decided, no, we'll stick it out, and they offered us these contracts that we could basically write ourselves. So me and him are like, I'm like, bro, how much are you asking for? I don't want to come in too hot. And so we write these how much we want and the things we want out of these contracts, and they just sign it, no dramas.
True, no questions asked. How much did you ask for? Way more.
It was over 100 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to basically play club rugby, so I was pretty happy. And then I go to training, and they booted out the old owner. The new owner turns up, and he goes, "Oh, I might send you foreign boys home." I'm like, it's like he said it so casually. I'm like, what did you just say? And so then I'm fighting them, bro, for they owed me a fair bit of cash, and they're like, oh, if you fly back to New Zealand, we'll put it in your New Zealand account. And I'm like, that is not happening. I said, I fly back to New Zealand, you guys are going to block me on all forms of communication. I said, I'm not leaving until you guys give me the money. And by this stage, I had overstayed my visa. So I got the money off them, and one of the managers there who I got along with all right, he rang the I suppose the embassy or whoever it was, and they said, oh, if he turns up to the airport, we're gonna detain him. And yeah, it was it was a Friday, and I couldn't get in front of a judge until the Monday. So if I went to the airport, I would have been detained from for the weekend with my family.
Far out.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, I'll miss that flight. I went to the I went to the bank. I told my mate I had this big wad of cash that they had given me. I said, bro, chuck this in the bank and transfer it back to New Zealand because they tried to get me to buy my own flight back to New Zealand. And I said, oh, nah, I'm broke. I've sent all that money home to pay debt. So you guys are going to have to get me some new flights. And then I get in front of a judge. I can't speak Russian. The judge says, how does he know? I had to sign all this paperwork. How does he know what he's signing if he can't understand Russian? And then the guy who was my 17-year-old interpreter, he's like, just write down what I write down. So he's writing down in Russian, and I just copy it down. And they're like, sweet, get out of here. I get to the airport. Got banned from going back to Russia for 5 years. And I said, deal, I'm not coming back.
Make it 10.
Yeah. How about a lifetime ban?
Oh, that sounds like an absolute shambles over there.
We're brutal.
Yeah, not the first player to have that sort of experience in Russia. You got to be careful where you do sign some of these contracts.
Yeah. There's been I think Glenn Horden was in Russia for a bit. I think Marty Banks was in Russia for a bit.
Banksy's one, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, crack up. So then, obviously, once you get back to New Zealand, you're transitioning out of rugby. That's you done?
Yeah, that's me. I played a little bit of club rugby, kind of here and there, but I was basically done. I was having kind of chronic calf and hamstring issues in my later years.
Yeah.
And it just was getting to the point where it wasn't like my mind was always saying go, and my body was just saying, mate, I've got 70% of me today.
Because those are big calves too, by the way, aren't they?
I've put a lot of work through them, but they let me down in the end.
So then how hard was your transition out of rugby? Obviously you had your S&C stuff to sort of fall back on.
Yeah, in terms of like career and stuff, it was pretty smooth, bro. I had I just had a goal of when I finished playing professional rugby to have X amount of money in the bank and to have my house paid off. So, you know, what I had to make that transition a little easier. And what I had done when I'd lost my wife was I just bought a bunch of gym gear. So because I was at home with my girl, I still needed to train. So I could put her to bed and I could just shoot out to the shed and smash it out. And then that kind of transitioned into me starting to take on clients. And so I was playing. The later years in Hawke's Bay and stuff, I was playing and I was starting to take clients on. So I was building a clientele.
Oh, yeah.
And then when I got back to New Zealand after my overseas stint, I just had a clientele base that I could call on, and I just kind of built and promoted from there and built up my gym. And so that's what I do now full time.
Yeah, it's still going strong.
Still going strong. Yeah, we've moved house, so I've got a bit better setup and a bit more space, and I just constantly upgrading gear and make sure you got quality gear and you don't want to have new clients turn up with some dusty old shit up set up.
What's the plans with it? Is it to just keep growing, or are you at a level now where you're pretty happy?
I'm pretty happy, and I want to in terms of like the training side of things, the growth is in like online training, which is like the stuff that I hate.
Yeah.
And so I enjoyed through rugby, I enjoyed being in the gym. And that's what I want to do with my clients. I want to be in the gym and interacting with people and seeing progress that way. And it's not going to make me multi-millionaire, but there's other things outside of that I can look to make money in. It's rental. I got a rental property and looking to expand that kind of thing. So on the training side of things, I'm pretty happy with the way things are going, but who knows what the future will bring.
Yeah, you're not looking to go online then? No, Chris Eaton YouTube channel?
No, not unless someone's going to throw a suitcase of money at me to do it.
Well, I know a Russian guy who probably would.
Yes. If they have another long meeting, I'll probably bow out of that one.
And you've done a few pretty significant charity challenges too. Obviously, ran a marathon on no training, 24 hours of rowing, done a few crazy things.
Yeah, so I kind of do something each year just to try and like give yourself the butterflies and stuff like that. You know, that nervous feeling you get when you're playing rugby, and I still do a bit of grappling and stuff like that just to keep that sort of stuff going, keep your mind sharp and give you that competitive, feed that competitive spirit. And just the charity stuff, I just feel like it's just it's always good to try and help out and try and give something back instead of always looking to take. There's always someone that can that can benefit from me doing something like that.
Mate, you are a good man. Oh, what a story, mate. We need to get to these questions. We've had, like I said at the start, so many have come through, but geez, that is one of the greatest yarns already. But wait till you hit some of these questions. Some of these look like absolute good stuff. Okay. First one is, tell us the story of Mike Coman in the barbershop.
So believe it or not, he's actually got a couple of good yarns about getting his hair cut. But the one that makes me laugh the most, because like Moo is one of my best mates, and I've got so much time for him. As you know, he's such a good bloke, but me and him come from completely opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of our upbringing. And he was fed a silver spoon when he was a baby, and he's growing up to someone who dresses like a middle-aged stepdad. And I say to him, I said, bro, I got to go and get a haircut. I said, you want to come for a ride? And he goes, yeah, no worries. So he doesn't know that the barber that I go to is out in the middle of the hood, and they don't have appointments. So this barbershop is always packed of people waiting to get a haircut, and it looks like a scene from Straight Outta Compton. And I rock in there with Moo, who's dressed in some boat shoes and some chinos, and I park him up, and I have waiting there for a good hour before I get in the chair, and then I just leave him sitting there by himself. And I can see him in the mirror just trying to crawl inside himself because he's so uncomfortable.
Oh, I can so picture that is.
He said to me afterwards, mate, I've never been that uncomfortable in my life.
Dresses like a middle-aged stepdad. Oh, geez, that's a good start. Okay, next one. What happened at the Christmas party with the pre-recorded J2 music videos? They've got the details slightly wrong. It was actually a birthday party. It was a surprise birthday party for my mum. Oh.
So my mum used to work at this pub, and my old man had organised. She'd gone to work for the weekend, and my old man had got everyone around to our place, and they're having pre-drinks, and then we're going to go to the pub where my mum works, and they'd hired a private bar, and they're going to usher her in and surprise party. So I'm only a kid at this stage. I'm maybe 10. My old man, he's got music videos, bro, on like VHS, He's taped to like ZZ Top and shit like that. And he's playing his music through the TV. Everyone's having a good time, bro. And his tape runs through to the end, and then it just flicks to a porn, and it's just blasting through the stereo in the TV, all over the screen as well. And then he's just trying to come up with this elaborate yarn how he must have been recording and it lapped over when he fell asleep. There's about 50 people in our lounge all watching porn my old man at tape.
And he's just leaped to pause it or turn off the.
Yeah, I've never seen the old boy run so fast.
Oh, that is so good. Oh, I love yarns like that. Oh. Okay, we'll get to the next one. Is it true he wears 12 millimeter heel raisers in his dress shoes for after-match functions to appear taller?
Mate, I'm confident in who I am. I don't need to wear lifts.
So that's a fair decline. Okay, this one looks good. What was it like to be the only rugby player to be sponsored by Wu-Tang? Is this a genuine fact? Because this says it was written in your contract in Russia that he was allowed to train in Wu-Tang socks and a hat. Surely not.
Quote, this is just another yarn from one of those Christchurch white battlers who's like never been exposed to to any sort of Māori or Pacific Island culture.
Oh, so it's not true.
No, the sponsorship is not true. The Wu-Tang socks are definitely true.
I was like, man, that is an outrageous sponsor.
Hey, but if that sponsor's out there, I'll happily take it.
Do they do gym gear? Okay, next one. Ask Chris how he used to get free fish and chips from our local.
Bro, that's one of my childhood mates. Yeah. So, down our local fish and chip shop, you know, when there's schoolyard rumours that get around about certain people, they're just outrageous rumours.
Yeah.
There's rumours down at the local Chinese fish and chip shop. You could go down and get free fish and chips if you suck the Chinese dude off.
So where did that finish?
I've never paid for fish and chips in my life.
Oh, wow, these questions have not disappointed. Okay, next one. Did he play as long as he did just to plan the end of your quarties? Obviously, you run a really good quarty because that came in a couple of times. They wanted to know your best Magpie one as well.
Yeah, so as you would know, running the information committee, information committee was my go-to, and the end of year quarty, and something I put a lot of work into. But I can't claim everything. I learned a lot throughout my years. A lot from guys like Ross Kennedy.
Oh yeah.
Ran a really good quarty. Any guys who came out of Dunedin and stuff, I picked up a lot of things from, and I just kind of added my own flavour to it. And I think by the end of it, because my demeanour, I suppose, I kind of don't take too much bullshit. I managed to hold the boys together for quite a while and can run a decent quarty. Everyone has a good time. The boys have actually twice now. I've been back after I've retired and run a quarty for the boys. And I've been back last year when they made the final, and I did the info committee for them for the final.
Oh, how good is that? One yarn that just popped in my head was the Tony Lambourne yarn when he came on. I remember him talking around being at a quarty, and catching on fire, and I'm guessing that's something that you're in charge of.
I don't think I would have been in charge of that, but setting Tony Lambourne on fire is not a bad thing.
Okay, next one. How'd you go on your first boxing event?
Yeah, so long story short, I got put on the canvas, but the context around it is I'd done all right, like in training and stuff, all the sparring and that. I was my second round was always rubbish for some reason, and then I'd come in good the last round, and then when we had the match, my first and second round I killed it. Like second round gave the dude a standing 8 count, so I knew I was up, and then go back to the corner for the last round. The dude who's training me is like, yeah, it's going all good, just rip into it. So I'm like, sweet, go out there in the last round, get put on my ass. And I couldn't recover in time, and she was all over.
Did you enjoy that? Did you enjoy getting in the ring? Obviously, it's a bit different to the streets.
No, I really enjoyed it, and I did it again. Like I was not gonna not do it after that again. So I got in again and got the monkey off my back and fought another dude. That fight went to plan.
Oh, good on you. Oh. Okay, 2 more or 3 more. Tell us about the dirty Talon Tasman.
So things keep happening in Tasman. I don't know what's up with that area, but bro, the rules for Hawke's Bay back then is if you don't play 20 minutes, you have to get up the next day. Either if it's an away game, you meet the trainer in the lobby, or if it was a home game, you'd have to go into the gym. So the guys that didn't play, or if you only played 19 minutes, you had to turn up and do a blowout for half an hour. So these two boys are rooming together, and your positions are always kind of close. So one of them started, the other one was on the bench, and he didn't get enough time. So he's got to get up in the morning and do a blowout. So he gets up, the other mate's still in bed. He goes out and does his blowout, half an hour. The boys get smashed. He comes back to the room for a shower. He rocks in. The other mate's still in bed, and he scoops up this towel from beside his bed, and he starts wiping his face down, bro, because he's covered in sweat. And he looks at this towel, and he goes, "This fucking towel stinks." And he just looks over at the mate in bed, and he's just losing it. And he goes, "Oh, you fucking asshole." And he just throws the towel down, and he just legs it into the shower.
Oh, this crook.
The dude in bed had the audacity to blame him. He's like, "What did you think was going to happen picking up a towel next to my bed?"
Oh, crook. Okay. Now 2 more. Tell us about your first overseas trip with the Canes.
So, like I said earlier, this is my second year at the Canes. So that was that time where I'd say we'd gone from the Chiefs with the injury with Smiley, blah, blah, blah. And Hammer had come in to try and kind of change the culture of the team.
Yeah.
So we're on the plane. I'm sitting next to one of the boys, and you get business class when you go to Africa. So the doc's handing out sleeping pills and melatonin, whatever, so the boys can try and regulate their sleep. And as you might know, back then, some people, a small minority of people, were kind of abusing those sleeping pills a little bit. Now, I wasn't one of them, but the mate goes to me, "Bro, give you a competition. We'll take these sleeping pills, and whoever falls asleep last is the winner. So we'll try and fight through it. I'm like, it sounds all right to me. I just thought you kind of would fight this tiredness and eventually nod off. So we down these pills, and then maybe 10 minutes later, bro, one of the other boys comes over and he goes, "We're at the bar, we're having a few drinks, if you boys are keen." Like, don't even think about it. They'll just smoke these sleepers. And I'm like, sweet, that's us. So we go to the bar. We start getting a few drinks, and man, and these sleeping pills hit, and the autopilot button comes on, and we're just fucking running amok on the on the plane. Me and one of the other boys have tried to go from the tip of the plane to the tail of the plane. He ended up standing on top of the seat over the trainer. He vivided a swastika on his forehead. and the, bro, and then all of a sudden, boom, I just black out. 10 hours later, I wake up. I don't know what's going on, but I'm like, thank you, see you later. Like, no idea we've been picking Muppets. And then I just start getting these flashes of memory starting to come back to me, like, oh no.
Was it just before you said you had your shocker?
No, fortunately,
Oh, that's right. You
I
stole me.
played an all right game before I had the shocker.
It was a week after effect. Oh, far out. Oh, that's good stuff. Okay, last question. Best piece of advice for a Woodland listener. Finish on a high. Oh, can you get any higher?
Best piece of advice: just be ready for when you get your opportunity. Like, just be physically ready. Like, there's so many times when opportunities could pop up, whether it's through injury or whatever it is, and it's just you just got to be ready to go. You got to be physically ready to go, and be on top of your game. Just be that guy who just refuses to go away, and someone's going to give you a shot at some point.
Yeah. Oh, mate, love that. And if they are looking to stay ready, go train at the Chris Eaton gym in the backyard.
Yeah, come and see me with you spewing in the garden ASAP.
Oh, but what a yarn, mate. I was so excited for this one, and it has absolutely not let me down. So many laughs, so many highs and lows as well. Like, what a journey you've been through, and some of the challenges that you face. Like, a lot of people talk around significant injuries and how hard that is to deal with, but what you've had to go through in your career has been, geez, it must have been a tough moment. But to see you bounce back and play 114 games for Hawke's Bay, and play all around the world, and have so many good stories to share for some Woodland listeners, it's been awesome to have you on.
Nah, thanks, man. Thanks a lot for having me. Yeah, I appreciate it.
You're an absolute lad.